All right, back for more testing. Let's see what happens. Okay, stream finished. But let's see if there's a new stream. Okay. Do we have audio? I think we do. All right. Seems like it works. Okay, maybe I just want to make sure that the streaming is all working. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just maybe I'll just read a little bit just as kind of a test. Uh, let's see. Yeah, I'll read a little bit from well, the nature of the stars. That's kind of appropriate. Let's see here. Hmm. Let's see. Hello, everyone. Okay, let me get a little feedback, make sure it's all working. So let's see. Let's see the stream quality. Hopefully it'll be okay. It's telling me, okay, cool. I see we have 5 viewers. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I'm really excited for today. So we're not going to start the interview for an hour. This is really just an early sound check. And, you know, but I appreciate everybody being around and feel free to post some questions. I think I'm going to just, for the next little bit here, I'm just going to actually be reading from Ra's book on the fixed stars because it seems relevant. And that way it'll be a more thorough test. I have 10 third lines. So I really like to test things out. And I want to make sure, for instance, that Zoom doesn't cancel out after 40 minutes or, I want to make sure that that works and so on. Okay, I'm going to I'll just be reading educational excerpts from Ra's material on the fixed stars as a little warm up. And if anyone has any questions or anything they'd like me to talk about, just as a kind of warm up discussion or get the ball rolling, or any ideas that have been bouncing around in your head related to true sidereal or just related to human design, please feel free. Okay. Rave Cosmology 7, the nature of the stars. Lesson 1, Aldebaran, the first marker. I'm going to kind of skip through the intro here. Neutrinos are a star product. Poetically, Ra is saying here, he likes to talk about them as being the breath of the stars, but they are a star product. What we understand through human design is something that is incredibly magical. That is, that this neutrino ocean is built on data streams, and data streams that are sourced to all the stars in the heavens. There's no consciousness without them, though that may sound simple or banal, but they are consciousness. That is, they are the source of consciousness. I'm going to make sure I don't read too much from this also, because I understand, legally speaking, it has to just be short excerpts. I mean, that's a great idea right off the bat. That neutrinos is the breath of stars. I really like that. All right. Audio is a bit choppy. Let me. I'm going to do a couple of audio tests really quick, and then I'll be reading more. Oh, audio video isn't lagging. Check your connection. Okay, good now? Okay, good. Oh, enjoying my attire. Thank you. Yeah, I have my little, professorial, all I need is kind of bigger elbow pads. I'm even wearing my slippers, very professorial. In my other life as an imaginary college professor, this is how I would dress. So okay, yeah, as long as it's working. Thank you so much. Thank you, Talis. Hi, Edible Angela. Hi, Divisor. Awesome. I'm just going to keep reading from Wave Cosmology then, just for more checking. All right. So now Ra continues. The stars have the deepest impact on our nodal position. And he's saying that his journey in the knowledge has led him to certain places of not just wonder, but a kind of respect. Yeah, it's interesting to think about respect for the stars, respect for the nodes. The nodes, as an example, it is phenomenal how significant they are in our relative existence, how they are the continuity actualized in our way of looking at things, that they are the continuity that binds the movement. It's through the nodes, those wonderful windows in the sky, that the most important information that we receive stellarly can be mapped. And Ross says here, he's seen so many attempts of doing interpretations of the stars, looking at the mapping, the relative relationship of somebody's sun to a particular star. And this is not what it's about. It's much more fascinating to look at those stars that are within the range of what are your design nodes. Much more interesting, because this is alignment information. It's not about the proximity of the sun to a star, or in astrology, the proximity of the ascendant. It's about the nodes, particularly the design nodes. Most of the information that we receive from the stars is the way that we truly receive it. It's not that there isn't this ocean that we move through, but remember, we are a programmable entity with specific receptors that work in specific ways. The great influence of the stars in our life is only something that we can recognize ultimately through our own correctness, because where they have their deepest impact is in our nodal positioning, that is, our design nodes, literally establishing the right direction for the movement of the individual vehicle. In this case, the individual object. So in thinking about looking at unique stars, there are so many. And Rob goes on to say he's a great fan of stars. And the very specific question that Ra is looking at here, he goes on to say, he's asking if it is possible, with the knowledge that he has, to determine what the nature of a star actually is. In other words, is it possible to understand what the unique imprint of a star is? The unique recognizable imprint. I mean, this is something I've thought about too. How do you narrow down? I was really fascinated by the star Algol. Algol, because it's at 26 degrees Taurus, or at least it was at the time I was born. Probably still is. I mean, 72 years to go a single degree, right? And so it's conjunct my ascendant. Now, of course, my ascendant is along the ecliptic, and the ecliptic is like this, and Algol is technically up here. So it's not really conjunct my ascendant if you look at the actual three-dimensional sky. But nevertheless, I was fascinated by Algol. I mean, I had a lot of synchronicities related to Medusa. Algol is kind of the third eye of Medusa, and a lot of it is about decapitation. It's known as kaput Algol. And so I loved writers like Catherine Malibu and Jameson Webster and writers like that who would actually talk about Medusa symbolism. Julia Kristeva goes into it. And I kind of, probably Michelle Serre, and I would kind of collect writers who explore Medusa and who explore horror and decapitation. And, if you look at people where they have prominent Algol positions, a lot of them are, will famously die in sort of grotesque ways and things like that. So I've been fascinated, and just the fact that this star Algol is where we get the word ghoul. It's where we get the word alcohol. It's where we get the word ogre. In Chinese, it translates as pile of corpses. So we do have specific connotations to stars, inherited connotations. But I think what Ra is asking here is, how would he verify the quality of the star, not simply through, folklore or mythos, but verifying it at a mechanical level, the mechanical neutrino stream of that star and what impact it has, or what signposts you can look for as markers as that neutrino stream passes through the sheath of personality crystal bundles, which are the gates, which we call the gates. We divide the personality crystal bundle sheath into these 64 divisions we call gates. And because the gate colors the neutrino stream so much, how do we know the quality of the star itself? And I think this is where Ra is quite brilliant once again. His 4323 really has some genius here. And it's in tracking the movement of the fixed stars against the gates. And that is, in fact, what Ra already had done with global cycles, but global cycles are rather tracking the movement of the gates that are attached to the fixed stars against the gates that are attached to the seasons, if you will, or tracking the heavenly order against the earthly order, if we can borrow the terms from Chinese philosophy, the Ho Shu and the Lo Shu, or however they're called. And so this is a little bit different. Ra is not simply looking at two wheels moving against each other. He's looking at specific fixed stars that, from our vantage point, appear to move 1 degree every 72 years. And in looking at that, he's able to kind of deconstruct some of the values of the stars. So I'm just going to kind of move on towards that. Okay. Ra says, when he looks at the particular segment of the sky, at a given particular segment, he has a fascination with his poster girl. For Ra, he says, Aldebaran is sort of the poster girl, the Betty Grable of the Babylonians, the poster girl of the bull. And Ra says, when he thinks about it, it's clear to him that he cannot really attribute anything specific, because the fact is that there's this enormous background field. And not all of it is moving relative to us in the same way. It's not moving at the same speeds. I mean, there's this huge background field. It's hard to kind of differentiate Aldebaran from that background field. It depends on the distance and the relative relationship of any of these objects. We like our stellar objects on the ecliptic because it gives them a regularity. It gives us a way of being assured somehow that the cosmos is secure. But Ra says here that he looks out to see the endless density that is behind it. And it is all of that because every single one of those objects is producing data. It's an incredible thing to imagine. Every single one of those objects in the sky, the trillions upon trillions upon trillions upon trillions. It's an endless, endless, endless number. And they're all pulsing out data, and there is no awareness, and there's no reason. It's their design. It's what they do. And the decay, which is the decay of their force, that decay is the consciousness data that pours out into the totality. And it doesn't just come from one direction, it pulses out in all directions, intertwines and meshes and molds and goes on forever, traveling at nearly the speed of light, this vast, dense, woven ocean of information. From all these different sources, and it has no agenda and there's no awareness. It's a mechanical mechanism. What is an ocean of data with nothing to filter it? No matter how small you make the arc in the wheel, it's still an ocean of data. So where do we go with that, my delightful poster girl? Ra asks to Aldebaran. Because remember, this is in the context of Ra asking, can we discern the unique value or quality of a specific star, of Aldebaran? Aldebaran Aleph. This is an indication of very specific, very important stars and their relationship to what is our discussion for today. So first of all, the stars are the Pleiades and then the Hyades. And so, okay, he's kind of going on. I'm going to skip through this. And then Aleph. Aldebaran was called the Aleph by the ancient Hebrew mystics. Ra says that most of the intelligent thought relative to our relationship to the sky began when the equinox was in Taurus, long before Aries was the first sign of the zodiac. So we're dealing with a beginning long ago in which the very early millenniums of developing this knowledge, the objects were in very different positions and they carried very different names and quality. So, I mean, at the time that Aldebaran was called Aleph, it had a very different quality because it was in such a different position relative to our earthly cycle. So that's interesting too, and something that I'm always kind of alert to when incorporating information from seven-centered systems and ancient information and so on. You know, it's funny because some sidereal astrologers would use the ancient qualities as evidence because it's been around for so many thousands of years, and I would use it as evidence of a description that was perhaps accurate then, but may not be accurate anymore, because the positions have changed, the qualities have changed. So I think this is Ra's point here, is that at that point, it made sense to call Aldebaran the Aleph, because Aldebaran was in a position in the sky, perhaps during the spring equinox or something like that, that would give it prominence. So we're dealing with knowledge very long ago, in which the early millenniums of developing this knowledge, these objects were in very different positions and had very different names and qualities. One of the things to recognize about Aldebaran is that it was very important to the ancient astrologer. You know, I'm sure if we talk to Hellenistic astrologers like Chris Brennan or Jen Zart, you know, they would know about Aldebaran and its ancient connotations as Aleph, because it had its relative opposite, that is Antares, on the other side of the wheel, and they basically formed the imaginary line upon which everything was calculated. So Antares and Aldebaran, or Aleph, were on this opposition. So Aldebaran being called the Aleph is something interesting. It's also interesting linguistically because the Sanskrit, it's the elephant, Aleph, the elephant, the alphabet. But anyway, it was certainly everybody's number one. And Ra says here that he calls it the first marker. For him, it's very clear that if we want to understand the quality that's coming from a certain arc in the wheel, then basically what we're looking at is a combination over a certain period of time in order to get a feel for it. And then I'll take a pause here, check any. Oh, managing incoming questions. Wonderful. Edible Angela. Yes, absolutely. Please manage the questions. I would love that. Okay, the video audio is asynchronous again and way off. Let me go check the streamer and see what's going on here. Okay, one moment. I really want to figure out the audio. We have 45 minutes to get all the audio stuff figured out. So let me take this. Okay. Well, I just checked in the streamer computer and it says that there's no dropped frames and it says it's in sync. So that might be something on the Zoom side. I unfortunately have not used Zoom a lot. The good news is I'm recording this in 3 different ways. And so at least one of them will hopefully have synchronized audio. I apologize if the audio isn't in sync for this stream. Okay, it's way off too. Dang. Yeah, I mean, I have a 200 megabit business class connection and it says 0 dropped frames and it says it's streaming. All I can think is that it's something weird in Zoom, that Zoom is not sending the audio and video in sync. So not really sure how to fix it. I'm asking my friend to test right now as well. Leslie says, my south node is Taurus. Oh, start a Google Live doc to post questions. Yes, that would be fantastic, Edible Angela. Please, that's wonderful. And I can post the link or you can post the link if it'll let you post it. There's also a Facebook group here. So you're welcome to post the link in. There's the Facebook event group. Okay, I'm just going to keep reading to do the sound check, and then I have my friend testing to see if, if the audio is still off. I'm not entirely sure what to do. There's a great solution that Kirill sent me using OBS Ninja, but I think I didn't really get that set up in time, so I apologize for that. Okay, continuing on. The stars don't have specific values for people. And here Ross says, there's only one clue. As far as he can tell, there's only one clue. The Arabian stellar astrologers were really interesting. One of the things that was clear to them, that was very much part of their revelation that emerged over the millennia, was that the stars did not have specific values for people. This was misinterpreted a long time ago, that the stars had a specific relationship to planets. And this is something Ross says that he thinks is deeply astute. Yeah, so this is interesting, is that conventionally the stars are of qualities like, oh, such and such star is of the quality of Mars, and this other star is of the quality of Jupiter with Venus. And by kind of using the known planets as an alphabet to combine and recombine and juxtapose in different ways, the Arabic and ancient Arabian philosophers and mystics and alchemists and so on were able to describe the stars given a particular vocabulary, a sort of astrological vocabulary. But what Ra is saying is that the connotations between a given star and a given planet are not actually fixed. And this is really fascinating. I'm not sure that Ra says this specifically, but what I think is the case, and I believe he does say something along these lines, my understanding of it anyway, which is kind of an intuitive understanding, is that the quality of a given star, say Aldebaran, is not linked to a particular planet like Mars or Jupiter or Venus. It's actually dependent on what line of the Rave mandala that star currently occupies. And if it occupies a line for around 100 years, for that 100 years, it will be associated with the planetary exaltations and detriments of that line. In other words, the planetary exaltations and detriments of that line in the Rave I Ching will be the sort of arbiters of that neutrino stream on Earth. So that if Aldebaran happens to be in a line of gate 16 that has the moon and Mercury as the exaltations and detriments, then Aldebaran will essentially be active or be having some sort of active influence, of its neutrino stream carried out by the moon and Mercury. But when it goes into a line, and I believe this is what Ra says in this lecture, when it goes into a line of the I Ching that has neither exaltation nor detriment, then for all intents and purposes, that star is effectively gone from the Maya for that period of time. It does not have an impact on the Earth. So it's not the actual direct neutrino stream from the star that has a personal relationship or even a planetary relationship. It's rather the neutrino stream as it's been stepped down through the personality crystal bundle sheath that encompasses the Earth's atmosphere. Okay, a doc that anyone can edit just in case the chat gets heated and Jonah has his hands full. Wonderful. Leslie Winter says, I'll probably need to refer back to this YouTube a few times. According to NASA, I might be a Virgo instead of a Libra. Well, you might have been born under the constellation of Virgo. I mean, there shouldn't really be a might about it unless it's right on the cusp, because the constellations are not clearly demarcated when they begin and end. But if you were born in the sign of Libra, not the constellation of Libra, then it's very well possible that you were both born in Libra and Virgo, so to speak. You were born in the sign of Libra with the constellation of Virgo. Overhead. Switching to the Zoom. No, I haven't shared the Zoom link. I can, but I think I don't have Zoom Pro, so I think if more people join, it's not going to let us talk more than 40 minutes. Yeah, you can use the FB event for the questions as well. I mean, I'm going to be checking both. So you're absolutely right, Talis. I'm intending to check the YouTube chat. I'm intending, if you'd like to post the Google Doc, Edible Angela, I'm all about artifacts. So even just having a Google Doc as a sort of artifact of the questions is great. And if anyone wants to transcribe Richard's answers to those questions and such, feel free. All right. I posted a fun link in the Facebook group too. It's called the 66 Sides, and it shows various fixed stars and their position. So you can see Aldebaran in gate 16, for instance, and Algol in gate 8 in Taurus, which makes sense. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions in the Facebook group. I just thought I would check really quick. Wonderful. Oh, that's a good question. I'm going to save the questions for later. I don't want to spoil them, but I did just copy a question from Angela, which I think is a great question. I hope to address later. Okay. Oh, I'm excited everyone's here. Thank you. Thanks all for coming. I have my favorite glass here. This is a, uh-oh, is the audio not working? Interesting. Looks kind of, not really sure what's going on. Looks like the computer's having a hard time. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Completely frozen for me. Oh, Zoom. Okay, let's see what we got here. Ooh, let's see. I just turned off my video and back on. Okay, it's working again. What the heck? Who would think this would be so? I I apologize, Carol. Um, oh, okay. See if I can fix it. Okay. Video sync, but I'm not really sure. Yeah, there's an option in OBS. I mean, has no like OBS has no dropped frames and is using very little CPU and is totally in the green and says very good connection and everything's perfect. So it must be Zoom. Zoom must be messing it up somehow because of the way that Zoom is being streamed into OBS is all I can figure. When I checked on my phone, it was in sync. So I really don't know why some people are getting it off. I will just stop and restart the stream and see if that fixes it, I guess. Oh, good point. Okay, Carol has the answer. Okay, I'm gonna stop at the stream. I'll be back in 5 minutes. Okay, I'm gonna do that. I'll be back in 5 minutes, everybody. Just one moment.